Hi students, myself Satish Kumar Konidala, Assistant Professor, School of Pharmaceutical Sciences, Vignyans Foundation for Science, Technology and Research, Guntur. In this video, we are going to discuss about chemistry of anticoagulants. In previous video, we discussed about the chemistry of coagulants. Coagulants means they can promoting the coagulation process, that is nothing but the blood clotting. So in this video, we are going to discuss about the anticoagulants. So anticoagulants are nothing but the agents which can able to prevent the coagulation process. So opposite to the coagulation activity. So these anticoagulants are generally used in heart diseases, so like atherosclerosis, congestive heart failure, arrhythmias. The clotting is developed in the blood vessels that may lead to different types of heart disorders. So in that situations, we are using the clot solubilizers that are nothing but the anticoagulants. So these anticoagulants can prevent the coagulation as well as solubilizing the already formed clot in our blood vessels. The learning outcomes of this video includes student could able to understand the chemistry, metabolic pathways, adverse effects and therapeutic value of anticoagulants. They could know the mode of action and structural activity relationship of different anticoagulants. Finally, they could able to understand the chemical synthesis procedures for synthesizing some important anticoagulating agents. The contents of this video includes introduction, classification of anticoagulants, mechanism of action, structural activity relationship, and adverse effects of anticoagulants, and at last it consisting of synthesis, properties and pharmacological uses of some important anticoagulants. Let me discuss one by one. Anticoagulants are nothing but the agents which can prevent or extend the coagulation time of the blood, which can extend or prolong the coagulation time of the blood, or they can inhibit the clotting factors activation during the coagulation process. So these anticoagulants are generally used in the treatment of acute myocardial infarction for long time therapy, are also used in the treatment of pulmonary and venous thrombosis. So where there is a prevention and extension of the thrombus formation is desired. An ideal anticoagulant agent can have the following properties. So first one is it should have the rapid onset of action. So it should require a rapid onset of action. And it should have the wide therapeutic window and longer duration of action. And it should have the reproducible pharmacokinetic and pharmacodynamic properties. Pharmacokinetic and pharmacodynamic properties. And should not having or it should not produce any adverse effects. That means it should not produce adverse effects and has minimal interaction with drugs and food in which they are co-administered. So these are the ideal properties required for a anticoagulant agent. Coming to the classification of anticoagulants, so they are classified into basically two types: direct acting anticoagulants and indirectly acting anticoagulants. Direct acting coagulants are nothing but parenteral coagulants. So that means the direct acting anticoagulants are nothing but parenteral anticoagulants. That means they are directly enter into the systemic circulation. That means through IV they will administer, so they can show the actions by directly entering into the systemic circulation. Indirectly acting anticoagulants are nothing but orally administered anticoagulants, are also called as oral anticoagulants. And these directly acting anticoagulants or parenteral anticoagulants are further subdivided into high molecular weight heparin, or it is also denoted as HMWH. Low molecular weight heparin, so it is denoted as LMWH, and newer heparin agents or newer heparin derivatives. So high molecular weight heparin is nothing but HMWH, and low molecular weight heparin examples are deltiparin, enoxaparin. Deltiparin, enoxaparin. These are the example for low molecular weight heparin. In case of newer heparins, examples are Fundafarinax, and Indraparinax. These are the newer heparin derivatives. And these indirectly acting anticoagulants or oral anticoagulants are further classified into coumarin derivatives, and 1,3 dione indone derivatives. So the indirectly acting anticoagulants are further subdivided into coumarin derivatives and 1,3 indone derivatives. Example for coumarin derivatives are warfarin, dicumarol. Example for 1,3 indone derivatives are phenandione, anisindione. So this is the classification of anticoagulants. So when you see the mechanism of action of the heparin, heparin will bind to the antithrombin, so that is an anticoagulating factor, and when the heparin is bind to the antithrombin, this will inactivate the coagulating factors like factor 5 and factor 8. That means when there is a complex formation by the binding of heparin to the antithrombin, so the heparin antithrombin complex is formed, and this heparin antithrombin will bind to the binding sites which are present on the coagulation factors. So when this antithrombin heparin complex is bind to these factors, then the factors are subjected to inactivation. So the factors are tend to inactivation, thereby the coagulation cascade events or coagulation cascade is prevented. So in that way heparin shows its anticoagulation activity. When this heparin is bind to the antithrombin, then the antithrombin anticoagulation activity is increased for about 1000 times. So when these factors are prevented, so when these factors are inactivated, then automatically the next coagulation factor is not activated by these factors. So that means, so there is a stoppage or prevention of coagulation cascade occurs. Coming to the active reactions of this heparin, so it can able to produce the bleeding, thrombocytopenia, osteoporosis, hypoaldosteronism, and hypersensitivity reactions. So these are the adverse effects that can be produced by the heparin. Coming to the therapeutic uses of heparin, so it is generally used in the treatment of venous thrombosis, pulmonary embolism, recurrent thromboembolism, intravascular coagulation, and also used in the management of acute angina, acute angina pectoris, acute myocardial infarction, and coronary angioplasty. So that is nothing but the stent replacement. And this heparin is also a treatment of choice in case of pregnant women. So why? Because to prevent the crossing of drugs across the placenta, so the heparin is generally used in case of pregnant women for the treating this type of disorders. So that means the heparin doesn't have the capability to cross the placenta. So for that reason it is generally used in the pregnant women as a treatment choice. So this is about the chemistry of heparin.